Imagine the world back in the late 1920s. The Roaring Twenties were in full swing and things were changing fast. For almost 20 years, the Ford Model T had been the car for everyone. It was simple, it was tough, and it put America on wheels. But by 1927, people wanted something more. They wanted a little more style, a little more speed, and a little more comfort. Henry Ford, who famously said you could have the Model T in any color as long as it was black, finally realized it was time for a big change. So, after a massive shutdown to retool the entire company, Ford introduced its next big thing, the Ford Model A. It was a huge deal, a completely new car from the ground up. The arrival of the Model A was a major event. It was officially unveiled to the public on December 2, 1927, and the excitement was unbelievable. People lined up for blocks just to get a peek at this new machine. It represented the future. The Model A wasn't just a replacement for the old Tin Lizzie. It was a total reinvention of what an affordable car could be. It showed that an everyday person didn't have to settle for a purely functional vehicle anymore. They could have a car that looked good, drove well, and had features that were previously only found on much more expensive automobiles. This was a new era for Ford and for the American driver. The Model A was produced from late 1927 all the way through 1931. Over those 4 years, Ford built nearly 5 million of them. That's a staggering number, and it shows just how popular this car was. It came in all sorts of different body styles too. You could get a 2-door roadster, a coupe, a 4-door sedan, a station wagon, and even a pickup truck. This variety was a big part of its appeal. Unlike the one-size-fits-all approach of the Model T, the Model A let people choose a car that fit their specific needs and tastes. It was a car for the individual, not just the masses. This car was truly a product of its time, bridging the gap between the old utilitarian cars of the past and the more modern, comfortable vehicles that were to come. It was built during a period of immense economic change, starting in the boom years and continuing right through the beginning of the Great Depression. Despite the tough times, the Model A sold well because it offered so much value for the money. It was reliable, easy to fix, and parts were available everywhere. It was a testament to Henry Ford's vision of providing dependable transportation for the average family, but with a fresh, modern twist that the public was ready for. So, what made the Model A so different from the Model T it replaced? Well, just about everything. The biggest change was how you drove it. The Model T had a complicated set of 3 pedals on the floor that had nothing to do with a modern car. One was the clutch, one was for reverse, and one was a brake for the transmission. The throttle was a lever on the steering column. The Model A introduced a control layout that we would all recognize today. A clutch pedal on the left, a brake in the middle, and an accelerator pedal on the right. This made it so much easier for people to learn to drive. The engine was another huge improvement. The Model A came with a 201 cubic inch 4-cylinder engine that produced about 40 horsepower. That was double the power of the Model T's engine. This meant the Model A could comfortably cruise at speeds of 40 to 45 miles per hour, and it could even hit a top speed of around 65. For the time, that was really moving. It also had a proper water pump for cooling the engine, unlike the Model T's thermosiphon system, which just relied on hot water rising. This made the Model A much more reliable, especially on long trips or on hot days. Safety and convenience were also big selling points. The Model A was the first Ford to have safety glass in the windshield. This was a huge deal because it meant the glass would crack into small pieces instead of shattering into dangerous shards in an accident. It also had a standard electric starter, so you didn't have to risk breaking your arm with a hand crank every time you wanted to go somewhere. The car came equipped with 4-wheel mechanical brakes, a significant upgrade from the 2-wheel brakes on the Model T, providing much better stopping power and control. And let's not forget about style. The Model A just looked fantastic. It was designed by Henry Ford's son Edsel, who had a great eye for design. The car had lower, sleeker lines than the tall, boxy Model T. It came in a variety of beautiful colors like Niagara blue and Arabian sand. A world away from the old any color as long as it's black philosophy. It had a stylish radiator shell, graceful fenders, and wire-spoke wheels that gave it a much more elegant and modern appearance. It was a car people were proud to own and be seen in, a real piece of rolling art. The Ford Model A completely changed how people thought about travel. Before, a long trip in a car was a real adventure and not always in a good way. Roads were often rough, and cars were not very reliable. The Model T was tough, but it was slow and not very comfortable for long distances. The Model A, with its extra power and smoother ride, made traveling longer distances much more practical and enjoyable. Families could now realistically plan a trip to visit relatives in another state or go on a vacation to a national park. The country suddenly felt a lot smaller and more accessible to the average person. This newfound mobility had a huge impact on daily life. For people living in rural areas, the Model A was a lifeline. It allowed farmers to get their goods to market more quickly and efficiently. It meant that a trip to the nearest large town for supplies or entertainment was no longer an all-day affair. Doctors could reach patients in remote locations faster, and services like mail delivery became more reliable. The car connected communities in a way that just wasn't possible before, breaking down the isolation of rural life and fostering a greater sense of national community. Think about what it meant for a family to own one of these cars. It represented freedom. On a Sunday afternoon, you could pile everyone in the car and just go for a drive. You could explore the countryside, have a picnic by a lake, or visit a neighboring town you'd never seen before. The Model A opened up a world of leisure and recreation that was previously out of reach for most people. It wasn't just about getting from point A to point B anymore. It was about the journey itself and the experiences you could have along the way. It helped create the American tradition of the road trip. The car's simple, robust engineering also meant that owners could often do their own repairs. Parts were cheap and widely available at Ford dealerships all across the country. This self-sufficiency gave owners a sense of confidence. They knew that if something went wrong on a trip, they had a good chance of being able to fix it themselves or find someone who could. This reliability was crucial in an era when roadside assistance was not a common service. The Model A was a trustworthy companion for the adventures of daily life and cross-country travel alike. There's a great story that really shows what the Model A meant to people, and it involves the infamous bank robbers Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow. Clyde was actually a big fan of Ford Vi 8S, which came after the Model A. But in 1934, he wrote a letter to Henry Ford himself to praise his cars. He wrote, "I have drove Fords exclusively when I could get away with one." He loved them because they were fast and durable, perfect for outrunning the law. While he preferred the newer V8, his praise for Ford's engineering speaks volumes about the reputation these cars had for performance and reliability, a legacy that started with the Model A. Today, the Ford Model A is more than just an old car. It's an important piece of history. It represents a pivotal moment in the automotive world, the point where cars transformed from basic tools into comfortable, stylish, and accessible machines for everyone. Its introduction of a standard control layout set the pattern for almost every car that followed. When you get into your car today and see the 3 pedals in a row, you can thank the Ford Model A for making that the norm. It was a bridge between the automotive pioneer days and the modern era. The reason the Model A is still so beloved is because it got so many things right. It was a perfect balance of simplicity, style, and performance for its time. It's also one of the most popular cars in the antique automobile hobby. There are clubs all over the world dedicated to preserving and driving these wonderful machines. Because Ford made so many of them and parts are still being manufactured today, it's one of the easiest and most affordable classic cars to own and maintain. It's a car that you can still take out on the road and enjoy, not just look at in a museum. Ultimately, the Ford Model A holds a special place in our hearts because it symbolizes a time of great progress and optimism. It gave people a new sense of freedom and possibility, empowering them to explore their world like never before. It was a well-built, handsome, and honest car that delivered on its promises. It improved on its legendary predecessor in every way imaginable, and set the stage for decades of automotive innovation to come. The Ford Model A wasn't just a great car for its time, it's a timeless classic whose charm and importance endure to this day.